You walk into an IKEA planning to buy one specific thing, a lamp, maybe a bookshelf, and you walk out 90 minutes later having somehow seen a fake living room, a fake kitchen, a fake kid's bedroom, a full cafeteria, and a checkout line stacked with candles and tea lights you never once planned to buy. There is exactly one path through most IKEA stores. You cannot shortcut it. You cannot simply walk to the lamp section and leave. The store is built, physically, as a single, long, winding, one-directional route specifically engineered so that leaving early requires real effort. So here's the real question this video is actually about. Why would one of the largest furniture retailers on earth deliberately make it harder to leave its own store quickly? This isn't a design accident or a quirky cultural rumor. It's a well-documented retail strategy that IKEA itself and retail design experts studying it have openly described for decades. The layout follows a principle retail designers actually call the forced path or boomerang store design, and it's been written about extensively in retail architecture literature and business case studies analyzing IKEA's growth. IKEA's own founder, Ingvar Kamprad, built the company's entire retail philosophy around deliberately controlling the customer's path and environment, down to details as granular as the specific furniture arrangement in each showroom vignette. This isn't a company that stumbled into a maze-like layout by accident. It's a company that built one of the most studied, most successful retail formats in the world specifically around that structure. Now, the easy explanation is they just want you to see more products, so you buy more. And sure, that's part of it. But that explanation alone doesn't fully hold up because plenty of large retailers with equally massive product catalogs, hardware stores, department stores, big electronics retailers use open, grid-based layouts that let you walk directly to exactly the section you need and leave. If simply seeing more products were the whole strategy, IKEA could easily use that same open grid layout and just add more signage pointing toward extra departments. It doesn't. IKEA specifically removes your ability to navigate efficiently, which is a much stronger, more deliberate intervention than just encouraging browsing. Here's the piece almost nobody explains clearly. An open grid layout lets your brain stay in an efficient, task-focused mode the entire time you're shopping. Find the item, grab it, leave. A single, winding, forced path does something psychologically very different. It removes your sense of control over your own shopping trip. And when people lose a sense of control over the structure of an experience, behavioral research consistently shows they tend to shift into a more passive, exploratory mental state instead of a goal-directed one. Which means the maze-like layout isn't really about product exposure at all, at least not primarily. It's about deliberately dismantling the efficient, get-in-get-out shopping mindset you walked in with, and replacing it with a slower, more receptive, more browsing-oriented state of mind for the entire duration of your visit. And this is where it gets genuinely more calculated than most people realize, because the specific route through an IKEA isn't just long and winding at random. It's built around a very deliberate sequence of showroom vignettes, fully staged living rooms, bedrooms, kitchens, designed to trigger a specific psychological reaction that retail researchers actually have a name for. Retail environment researchers call it the Gruen transfer, named after architect Victor Gruen, one of the pioneers of the modern shopping mall, who observed that a sufficiently disorienting, immersive retail environment can shift a shopper from their original, specific intention into a more impulsive, exploratory state, buying things they never walked in planning to buy. IKEA's staged room vignettes aren't just showing you furniture. They're showing you an entire lifestyle scene, fully decorated, styled, and lived-in looking, specifically designed to make you imagine your own life inside that scene rather than simply evaluate one product's price and dimensions in isolation. Which raises the real question this video is actually about. Does that specific kind of immersive staging actually change what and how much people buy in real, measurable terms? Here's the mechanism, named plainly. It's a combination of forced path navigation and immersive environmental staging, and together they work by systematically lowering what researchers sometimes call decision friction. The natural resistance you'd normally feel toward buying something you didn't originally plan to buy. When you're moving efficiently through a familiar grid layout, your brain treats every unplanned item as a small, deliberate decision requiring justification. When you're moving passively through a long, immersive, one-directional path with no easy way to double back. Your brain shifts into a lower friction mode, where picking something up simply because it looked good in a staged room requires far less conscious justification than it normally would. So the reframe here is this. The confusing, maze-like layout was never a byproduct of trying to cram too much furniture into one building. It's the actual product being sold to you before you ever reach a cash register. A carefully engineered psychological state, layered on top of the furniture itself, specifically designed to make browsing feel like discovery instead of shopping, and make unplanned purchases feel like small, low-stakes impulses instead of deliberate financial decisions. And once you see it this way, a lot of specific IKEA design choices start making a different kind of sense. The strategically placed shortcuts that do exist are usually intentionally understated and easy to miss, keeping most shoppers on the main path by default rather than by force. The marketplace section near the end of the route, packed with small, cheap, impulse-friendly items like candles, storage boxes, and kitchen gadgets, is positioned specifically at the point in the journey where you're most mentally fatigued and least likely to carefully scrutinize a small additional purchase. Even the cafeteria placed midway through many stores isn't just a convenience. It's a strategically placed pause that keeps you inside the building, fed and re-energized, for the second half of the route, instead of leaving hungry and tired partway through. So here's the number. Industry and retail design research on the impact of immersive, forced path layouts compared to standard grid layouts has found meaningfully higher rates of unplanned purchases and longer average time spent in-store, with retail behavior studies broadly documenting that longer in-store dwell time correlates strongly with higher total spend per visit across large-format retail generally. IKEA itself has structured an enormous share of its revenue around exactly this kind of impulse-friendly, low-cost marketplace merchandise sitting at the tail end of the route. Small items that individually feel almost inconsequential to add to a cart, but that add up substantially in aggregate across the company's massive global visitor volume. Now, if a longer, more disorienting path leading to meaningfully higher spend sounds like a strong enough strategy on its own, wait until you see what IKEA layers on top of that path specifically to make sure the fatigue and disorientation don't actually push you to leave early in frustration. Because keeping you inside longer only works if the experience also keeps you comfortable enough to stay. Here's the layer most people miss entirely. Every element that makes an IKEA trip feel exhausting also has a matching element specifically designed to offset that exhaustion just enough to keep you moving forward instead of turning back. The affordable, centrally located cafeteria offsets physical fatigue and hunger. The supervised children's play area offsets the specific friction of shopping with young kids, removing one of the most common reasons a shopping trip gets cut short. Clearly marked, frequent rest areas and staged living room vignettes you're implicitly invited to sit in offer physical relief exactly often enough to keep you from feeling like you need to leave the building entirely to recover. Which means the entire IKEA layout isn't just a maze designed to disorient you. It's a carefully balanced system, engineered to introduce just enough friction to lower your shopping guard and increase impulse buying, while simultaneously introducing just enough comfort and relief to prevent that friction from ever building up to the point where you'd rather abandon the trip than finish it. Too little friction, and you shop efficiently and leave. Too much discomfort, and you leave early in frustration. IKEA has spent decades calibrating the exact space in between. Here's why this matters beyond just understanding one furniture retailer's floor plan. This same underlying principle, deliberately engineering an environment to shift you out of an efficient, task-focused mindset and into a slower, more receptive, more impulsive one, shows up across a huge range of physical and digital spaces you move through regularly. Casinos famously use disorienting layouts with no clocks or windows for exactly this same psychological reason. Grocery stores place high-margin impulse items at eye level along the specific longer route you're guided toward, rather than the shortest path to your actual shopping list. And this same logic has migrated directly into digital retail as well. Infinite scroll product feeds, algorithmically generated, you might also like. Sections placed deliberately between you and your checkout button, and app interfaces specifically designed without an obvious, quick, just buy the one thing and leave path are all digital descendants of the exact same underlying idea IKEA physically built into its stores decades earlier. Friction and immersion, carefully balanced, reliably outproduce simple efficiency when it comes to unplanned spending. And this is where the story gets genuinely counterintuitive, because it means the specific feeling most people describe after an IKEA trip: mild exhaustion mixed with a strange sense of having discovered things they didn't know they wanted, isn't an accidental side effect of a confusing building. It's very close to the actual intended outcome, precision engineered across decades of layout refinement, staged vignette design, and deliberately placed comfort stations, all working together toward the same specific psychological result. So here's the full mechanism, all the way through. A single, forced, winding path removes your sense of navigational control and shifts your mindset from efficient and task-focused to passive and exploratory. Immersive, fully staged room vignettes trigger the Gruen transfer, encouraging you to imagine a lifestyle rather than evaluate individual products in isolation. Strategically placed comfort elements: food, rest, childcare, prevent the resulting fatigue from ever building up enough to make you want to leave early. And the low-cost impulse marketplace sits deliberately at the exact point in the journey where your resistance to small, unplanned purchases is at its lowest. None of it requires tricking you about a single price or product. It only requires carefully engineering the physical journey you take to reach them. Which leaves an interesting question worth sitting with. As more retail shifts towards smaller urban format stores, curbside pickup, and online ordering that bypasses the physical layout entirely, does this specific forced path strategy start to lose its power? Or does the exact same underlying psychology simply get rebuilt inside the app, the website, and the algorithm instead, using disorientation and immersion just as deliberately, just without the actual maze of furniture you can physically walk through? This is exactly the kind of thing this channel exists to unpack. Not the surface-level feeling that a store layout is just confusing, but the precisely engineered psychological system quietly running underneath it. And if you've made it through all 8 of these videos, you've now seen the same underlying idea show up again and again, in completely different disguises: a hot dog, an overbooked flight, a missing scent, a shipping charge, an insurance premium, a pricing menu, a real estate deal, and now a maze of showrooms. Every one of them is a business quietly solving a problem you never knew existed, using a mechanism you were never meant to notice. If that's the kind of thing you want to keep seeing, subscribe, because this channel exists specifically to keep finding the next one. The next ordinary, everyday thing that turns out to be running on a far more deliberate system than it first appears. There are a lot more of these hiding in plain sight, and this was only the first 8. Next time you find yourself deep inside an IKEA, tired, holding 3 candles and a storage box you never planned to buy, you haven't lost your way. You've followed the exact path someone spent decades designing for you to follow, one showroom at a time.